I'm just going to go through the pluses and minuses. Buddy McGirt is a better coach for Kovalev than John David Jackson. I'm not saying he's a better coach than John David Jackson. I'm saying for Kovalev he's better. John David Jackson did a similar job for Arturo Gatti. He took him back to his boxing and not getting hit so much. And he was successful for a few fights, but when he left, he did revert back to what came more natural to him, slugging. And he did the same with Kovalev in the last Alvarez performance. And that's going to be a problem for Anthony Yarde. John David Jackson, he said, fighting Kovalev at range is risky. That's where he generates all his power, long-range punches. You definitely want to beat him up inside and work that stomach. He said he spoke to Tunde for an hour or so, because you know John David Jackson wants Kovalev to lose. The problem is, though, with Kovalev adopting that back foot game, that movement game that he did against Alvarez, it's designed to preserve Kovalev, and it's designed to combat younger fighters who want to take it to him in a drag him out type of brawl and test Kovalev's wind. I think Tunde would have noted body shots working on the inside Ward Kovalev too was very effective for Ward. But he keeps talking about this system, all the different types of combinations. And we know the system was developed on the Mayweather school of boxing. So defense is a focus, especially that Philly show. And a lot of people do not like Yarde's chances of being effective with that shell against Kovalev's right hand. But they're not about getting hit. Remember, he doesn't spar like other fighters spar. They're not there to get banged up. They're there to challenge Buddy McGirt's strategy of winning by not getting hit. Hitting and not getting hit. This could turn into a chess match. They're tunnel vision in on what their objectives are. They're not worried about corrupt scoring or corrupt refereeing in Russia. They're not taking that into consideration. They're sticking to their game plan. But they do want a knockout. They do want a knockout. That's what they said. If it does go to the scorecards, can Yarde win a chess match in Russia? I'm not going to try and say the city where it's in. I'm just going to say Russia. The late luggage at the airport, did it come a day after or the next morning? Some people are calling foul, trying to unsettle Yarde and Tunde. Tunde said there were raised eyebrows when that happened. It's gone and went. I don't really know what more to make of that. Yarde spoke about not having no hot water in the evening, but he was back the next morning. He tried to make a point of not complaining about it to Steve Bunce, because they will want to show the Russians that anything you try is not bothering us. We're there for the belt. They went head to head. I noticed how thick set Yarde is in the neck. Is that a shock absorber type of neck that can take the power if necessary? Who knows? And I'm guessing Tunde and Yarde ain't trying to prove that they can take the power either. They won't want to get hit by Kovalev like that. No. And no, Yarde hasn't proved himself on fringe world level or nothing like that. But the eye test tells me Kovalev don't want to get banged around by Yarde either. He don't want to get into exchanges with the younger guy like that, because Kovalev's chin isn't exactly made of iron either. I'm picking Kovalev. My fan hat is hoping Yarde can pull it off. Yarde is just too inexperienced for me to say, yeah, he's going to do it. Just too inexperienced. I expect him to acquit himself very well, though. Very well. If he does pull it off, I'm going to say it will be a bigger accomplishment than Luke Campbell beating Lomachenko. Here's why. Yarde has only had 12 amateur fights, 18 pro fights. He's up against one of the best punchers in the sport and one of the best boxers going on the last performance. He's fighting on Kovalev's doorstep. It would be a huge win if he pulls this off. Huge. Now, Tunde and Yarde will say different, but for me, breaking the fight down, I would have had to see Yarde against a better caliber of opposition, especially determining if he can even go the distance. You know, never seen him in a 12-rounder or a 10-rounder like that. I believe both of them have the power to end it inside the distance. Yarde is often compared to Mike Tyson by many, but before Mike challenged Trevor Burbeck, I saw Mike go the distance with Quick Tillis, with Mitch Green, go late with Jose Rebalta. I saw that, so I knew Mike could do the distance. doing championship rounds is mental as much as physical. So you need the mental preparation. It's not that I'm doubting Yarde's physical conditioning, as I don't even know if Kovalev has done much 10-rounders before he won his first title against Nathan Cleverly. But I know he had the distance fight with Darnell Boone where he was apparently on the floor and in serious trouble, and that fight's not online for whatever reason. So he knows adversity. He does know adversity. Can Tunde buck the trend? Now, I guess my old school thought process is just clicking back to fighters of the past, Like Ali had that eliminator against Doug Jones before he fought Liston. Barry McGuigan had Juan Laporte before he fought Pedroza. People talk about Muhammad Ali versus Spinks. Spinks had, 7 fights or whatever it was. But Spinks had an extensive amateur career. He was an Olympic gold medalist. He was on that circuit where Emmanuel Stewart had his boxers and the Haglers, the Leonards and the Pryors. He was on that circuit. It was very competitive back then. Peter Radmacher, he fought Floyd Patterson in his debut. He was an Olympic gold medalist, but, Patterson destroyed him. It was just too early. That's just way too early. Amateur experience, extensive or not, it's just too early. We make a big deal of Loma's limited pro experience and all what he's achieved, and he's an extremely talented fighter. But we have to remember, man, the man's won 2 Olympics, 300, 400 amateur fights or something like that. And he also competed in the World Series of Boxing, which is basically semi-pro boxing. They do 5 rounds, and they fight in what is basically a professional format. They was even thinking the other year they should add World Series of Boxing fights onto the pro records of fighters who turn pro. I can't pick Yarde because the jump is something I've never seen. He hasn't even fought the best of his domestic competition. He didn't fight Boazzi. He didn't fight Burton, even though I don't rate Burton that highly. He didn't fight even a Bob Azajafe or a King Arthur from Manchester. Nobody. This is not something that's common in British boxing, that you haven't even took on the best of your domestic opposition, European opposition, Commonwealth opposition, fringe world class, and then challenge for world honours. Haven't seen this. It could work in his favour because he could just surprise everybody with stuff that we don't know about. Could surprise Kovalev. Because, look, there's not much Buddy McGirt and Kovalev can go off. Most of them are early blowouts. Some of the opponents hit him, but you can't really say, is that down to defensive deficiency, or did he feel them out and just know that they couldn't hurt him? And he just took more chances than he would if he was up against a higher grade of opponent. It's hard to prepare for someone like that. And in saying that, this is why it's dangerous for Yarde. If I'm to believe Buddy McGirt, he said he hasn't watched, did he say no tape of, he hasn't really studied Yarde. And maybe that's why he hasn't studied Yarde. Because he knows he's not going to get a decent read on it. It'd be a waste of camp. So basically, they're just trying to get Sergei at peak physical levels, do everything that he's done before at the best they can get it, and they assume that will be enough to beat Yarde. Then there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Kovalev has fought a varied level of opponent, well level. For instance, if you're going to look for a body type similar to Yarde that he's fought, you go to Pascal. Pascal, he shells a little like Yarde. Yarde and Pascal are similar in the fact that they fight in spurts because he's liable to gas out. Now, I don't know if Yarde will gas out if he's forced to throw more punches than he's used to, but he does have them huge muscles, which Andre Ward was assessing that Yarde has them huge muscles that fill up with blood, I think he said, and then he could gas out. He doesn't have the muscle memory of doing hard rounds. Fitness is one thing, but I'm not sure if I would rather have a fully fit fighter who's inexperienced in championship rounds like Yarde, or have somebody who's not quite fully fit, but has a wealth of experience in the championship rounds. The muscle memory must be invaluable, but Tunde doesn't seem to think so. If you hear fighters saying, I didn't know if I could do 10, 11, 12 rounds, but now I've did it, it's something I can tick off the list of things I need to do as a boxer. You see, Kovalev, at the press conference, he was saying how he's glad he's had his losses. I can't remember what else he said, but without them losses, he wouldn't have made them adjustments. We wouldn't have seen that last performance against Alvarez. His experiences at the level he's been fighting at makes him understand his body more, and he's tailoring his style accordingly. Yarde doesn't know what he's capable of. He doesn't know his weaknesses from his strengths. He can't know because he hasn't fought that level of opposition. You can't know. Milton McCrory, when he got knocked out by Don Curry, after he said, I thought I had an iron chin, until he fought Don Curry in the unification bout. McCrory was a guy who fought power punchers like Colin Jones twice, defended his title about 4 or 5 times. And it wasn't until he fought the elite guy that he realized he could be knocked out. Let alone somebody who hasn't even fought the best in his backyard in the United Kingdom. If it goes wrong, everybody's going to be pointing the finger at Tunde, because Tunde is very vocal and drives some people up the wall, quite frankly. But another person they really need to be looking at is Frank Warren. Even with the best preparation, even with the best resume going into a championship fight for a contender, anything can happen. But conceivably, this could ruin a young man's career, one fight, because he wasn't developed correctly for this opportunity. And I don't care if you're in the comment section, you don't know, you're talking about Yarde's going to win, Yarde's going to win. You're saying that because you either want him to win, and there's nothing wrong with that, or you don't understand boxing. Because look, the outcome is out of my hands. I'm just breaking down the fight. I'm just talking. And it's out of your hands. Even if Yarde wins, and you're right. The facts are, this is not the way to build up a contender. And Yarde winning, in these circumstances, will still make him an anomaly. If we was to take 20 fighters with similar experience as Yarde, and another 20 with similar resume and experience of Kovalev, and I bet all the time on the guys who have Kovalev's experience, I'm going to be taking your money. You might win a couple of bets, but I'm going to be taking your money. Another potential factor that could play into Yarde's hands is they're talking about Kovalev versus Canelo. Canelo actually offered to pay Yarde step-aside money to get the fight. Now, Kovalev did allude to focusing on this fight, and then after he will consider his options. But if he is reading his own headlines, not much people give Yarde much of a chance, not in America, not in Russia. So he might be thinking, if I can just get this kid out the way, I've got this mega fight, this mega lucrative fight with Canelo lined up. When in my opinion, he needs to give Yarde his full attention and not be looking too far ahead. I'm not sure if he'd be taking this fight if it wasn't a mandatory. Now, Tunde said that Frank Warren informed him that this is the right time to get Kovalev. So maybe Frank had some intel that Kovalev is there for the taking. Perhaps Golden Boy had the same intel, because they certainly wanted to pay off Yarde with some step-aside dough so they could get in there. If that vodka has took its toll on some of the other extracurricular stuff that has been going on in his life, apparently he has legal trouble because allegedly he doesn't know how to act around the females. Could be a good time for Yarde to get him. Could be. Yarde is 28, Kovalev is 36. Yarde doesn't have the physical stress on his body that Kovalev has. And experience can be a double-sided coin. There's a thin line between experience you can draw on as a benefit in a tough fight, and then you have that stage when that experience crosses over into 8th round, 9th round, 10th round. Do I want to take them body shots and go through what I went through with Andre Ward, or what I went through with Alvarez in the first fight? Because in the first Alvarez fight, when he started taking a beating, he came back and tried to up the gear, and then Alvarez upped the gear again, and Kovalev crumbled. Now, the second fight, he managed to keep the fight at a pace he was comfortable with, and didn't have to up gear and catch Alvarez up or anything like that. But if it does turn into a drag him out, no prisoners affair, Kovalev cannot hide his body language and the anguish he's going through. He can't hide it. We've seen that on a few occasions now. And Yarde should be able to pick up on that as the younger fighter and perhaps go up a gear. But I've made my pick already. Kovalev on points, Could be a late stoppage, but I think Yarde does have a chance. I think he does.